So if it's going to be used, it's better to focus on those groups who have risk of severe disease and death, rather than, as we see, some countries are using to give boosters to kill children, which is not right. Some countries are using to give boosters to kill children, to kill children, to kill children.
Paging Dr. Freud.
Ho, ho, ho!
It's Dr. Fauci!
I hope you're having an emotionally non-specific generic winter holiday.
We are having a Merry Christmas.
Be merry with fewer people. You're breaking protocol. Ho, ho, ho!
Experience as a local official, as a member of the state legislature. This is if. So, in any case, Mark Dissonier.
Yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas as well.
Okay.
Merry Christmas, and let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
I would dance and be merry. Life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Then strangled them, and finally dismembered their bodies.
Right.
Then and homelessness and all that.
And now, the voice you've been waiting for.
There is a secret song at the center of the world, and its sound is like razors through flesh. I'm here to turn up the volume.
Well, I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and wasn't too hampered by the fear that's been peddled lately. The government and the media have done just about everything they could to try to pump up the fear for this moronic variant, even trying to make people afraid to have unvaccinated family members come to Christmas.
If someone in your family isn't vaccinated, should you ask them not to show up?
Yes, I would do that. I mean, I think we're dealing with a serious enough situation right now that if there's an unvaccinated person, I would say, I'm very sorry, but not this time, maybe another time when this is all over.
And you had Fauci in this same interview saying that the changing of definition for what fully vaccinated means is really just a technical thing and almost a matter of semantics.
Is the definition of fully vaccinated going to change to include boosters, Dr. Fauci?
You know, it very well might. I mean, it's almost a semantic situation.
And why not? I mean, right about the time that it came out that Fauci was bullshitting about not funding gain-of-function research, the NIH released papers saying that, yeah, we did fund that stuff, but at the same time, they changed on their website what their definition of gain-of-function was. And they've changed the definition of vaccine because vaccines were something that made you immune, and now they changed that to give you an immune response. Because these new vaccines, the only immunity is the legal immunity of the people that make them. And President Poopy Pants tried to give his ominous-sounding speech where he warned that the unvaccinated faced a winter of death and pain. Although it came off sounding more like,
You're gonna die in there! All of you! You are gonna die!
and it doesn't appear to have been too effective. I mean, I'm sure some people were scared by it, but by and large it seems like most people are sick and tired of this bullshit, and it's about time. While cases were exploding in South Africa, the death toll has plummeted. This should be good news, but they're reporting that, oh no, we should be extra afraid. And keep in mind that South Africa is a country that has very low vaccination rates. So if it's not killing them, then what do we have to be so worried about? And if, in the coming weeks, we do suddenly see this huge spike in people dying in this country, I'm sure they'll ignore the fact that that hasn't happened in unvaccinated countries, and you won't hear a fucking peep about the possibility that this might be antibody-dependent enhancement. What is antibody-dependent enhancement? I'll let Dr. Shorty McShitstain himself explain it.
And there are diseases in which you vaccinate someone, they get infected with what you're trying to protect them with, and you actually enhance the infection. You can get a good feel for that in animal models. So that's going to be interspersed at the same time that we're testing. We're going to try and make sure we don't have enhancement. So the worst possible thing you could do is vaccinate somebody to prevent infection and actually make them worse.
Of course, that was 18 months ago, and you'll probably never hear a fucking word about that again. But hopefully we won't have a problem with people dying of the moronic variant, and it'll just fizzle out the way that it already is in South Africa. In which case, they'll find something new to hype up, maybe a good climate change scare, or some quote-unquote domestic terrorism, or maybe that cyber pandemic that Klaus Schwab was warning about last summer.
We all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack or potential cyber pandemic.
With a spirit of bold curiosity for the adventure ahead.
And this is the same asshole that within a few months of this pandemic really kicking off worldwide had his book come out, COVID-19 and the Great Reset. The Great Reset being something that a lot of people claim is a myth and not really a thing. But it very much is a thing, and the Great Reset was a plan that was talked about before the pandemic even happened. The pandemic was more or less just a vehicle to usher this in and bring about the changes that the World Economic Forum were predicting that the world would see by the year 2030. You know, that whole thing where you'll own nothing and be happy. But of course, none of that really exists, and so pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And of course, here in the US, you have President and Vice President Shits and Giggles trying to proclaim that this whole Build Back Better thing was something that they came up with. Although, it was leaders all over the world almost simultaneously saying the same thing. We're gonna build back better. But who it's going to be better for, and what exactly better means, that's up to interpretation and a matter of opinion. I know this may sound like I'm trying to be all doom and gloom, but I'm really not. I point all this out to say that in this coming year, no matter what changes we end up facing, we have a choice to make. Are we just gonna allow ourselves to be swept along the currents and wind up in the dystopic future that's described in the COVID-19 and Great Reset book? Or are we going to point out that this didn't have to happen? It was allowed to happen. We didn't have to send deadly viruses to be souped up in a lab in China that is known for having lax protocols. We didn't have to put all of our critical infrastructure on a highly vulnerable internet system that could be fucking hacked and then crippled. We didn't have to let central banks all over the world print our currencies into fucking oblivion. These were all choices that were made for us. And we're going to have an opportunity to say that this is some bullshit that we never signed on to. It's not going to be easy. We've got a hard road ahead of us. But maybe it's about time that we stopped spending all of our time amusing ourselves with nothing but a diet of garbage, junk food television, and social media intake. It's made society in general weak and stupid. But we made a choice to lurch off into the world of the trivial and vapid, and we can make a choice to knock it off. Let's make 2022 the year that we stopped spending all of our free time binge-watching and scrolling through social media feeds and got back to doing things that are worthwhile with our time. Yeah, it'll be difficult, but nothing that's worthwhile isn't. Sláinte.
All I have in this world is my thoughts and my words, and I don't break them for no one. You understand? So say good night. So say good night to the bad guy. So night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. Come on. Come on. Come on. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. So say good night, so say good night, so say good night to the bad guy. I told you, don't fuck with me. 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 You stupid fuck. Look at you now.